Hey folks, Steve here with a very special unboxing video for you. This one might be a longer one, so strap in. We are looking at the Dune War for Arrakis set that has been shipping from the original Kickstarter. This is a game that uh, unfortunately I didn't catch the Kickstarter, so I had to buy this set from a website that was reselling basically their um, uh, sort of store pledge, whatever they did to get the game. And I'm really just going to be unboxing the main game and the two main expansions here. I don't have. I think there's like a neoprene mat you could get, a roll up map, and a few other bips and baubles maybe. And I this was just the core pledge set. So the main game that includes whatever other sort of special Kickstarter bonuses are inside the box, and then the Smugglers of Dune and the Spacing Guild, or maybe it's the Smugglers and the Spacing Guild expansions. So we'll do the expansions last here, and just to cover like what is this game? And unfortunately, the reflection of the plastic wrap is making it hard to see. That's a D, that's a U, that's an N, that's a E, red vertically, and I had to set the box down. It's just so big, everything's so big. The boxes are big and heavy, filled with stuff. Um, this is a game that is designed by the same guys who have done the War of the Ring game, which War of the Ring, a very well known thematic war game based on Lord of the Rings, right? More than an excellent game. I love that game. And so these guys got some deal to do uh, a game on the Dune franchise and basically follows a lot of the same sort of thematic war and objective mechanics of War of the Ring in a Dune context, really based in and around the original Dune story, the first novel or the movies, um, not the sequels and not much of the tertiary stuff in the Dune universe. Now, you might say, hey, isn't there already a somewhat famous or well known Dune board game? There is. That is the multiplayer, up to six players or more, or even with expansions, you can do more game. The latest printing was from Gale Force 9, I think. That's the original Dune board game, and that's a very cool game. It is more multiplayer and much more kind of like this open sort of sandbox game of political intrigue and interesting, funky mechanics from the 70s that have been cleaned up a bit in the last printing of it. And that's just a very different game. And in fact, if you play that game, it's not really going to resemble much of the story of the original Dune novel. It has the factions, certainly, but not all the factions fought each other in the ways that you would fight each other in that board game and contest situations. And you have Bene Gesserit troops fighting people, which that's not really what happened in that story at all. That Dune board game is still a classic. It has its own niche. This game is very much more tied into the narrative of the original Dune story, and I find that to be a very attractive idea because I love Dune. I really do. I love Dune. I've loved Dune for years and years and years. It was like the first book that really got me into reading as a younger guy. Um, and so it has a special place in my heart. And I do like the older Dune board game, but this potentially scratches an itch that has been missing, which is a sort of full throated, uh, narrative of Dune in a big board game format. So that's kind of the distinction. And of course, there's other Dune board games. There's Dune Imperium, which is more of a worker placement game, and there's other stuff out there. But I think this one has the potential to be something truly, truly special because you are really playing the contested situation from the book, and that just makes it all the more interesting to me. So let's start getting this thing unboxed. What I'm going to do, I'm going to set the expansions aside for the moment, and we will open them up a little later in the video. And we're gonna start looking at the big game itself. Now you can see uh, what's interesting is like this sort of dual box. The way that they use the script for Dune, you can turn it any which way and it still reads Dune. Flip it this way, it says Dune. So you can see, if you have the box tilted this way, it's like the Harkonnens situated, standing triumphantly, and the opposite side is young Paul Atreides and his Fremen allies and the sandworms in the background. All very cool stuff. And this is the exclusive edition. So I believe this is, when the game is fully in its retail style, it will be a little bit different, a little bit maybe less than this Kickstarter edition. So that's sort of one of those bummer things I really don't like when, a game like, one, I missed the Kickstarter. I didn't even know the Kickstarter was going on. And by the time I learned about it, it was too late. Which endangered my ability to get exclusive things. I wish companies wouldn't do that. Not everybody can catch a Kickstarter or even know about them, despite their best efforts at marketing. And not everybody can always drop the money at the right time to get the particular game, and so it's like you're locking people out of an experience. I just don't like that. That's a personal thing. So now we can see without the reflection of the plastic wrap, you can see it a little bit more. Now, if you want to look at the back of this thing, which this is a gigantic, this is a tombstone box. You can kind of see there's some nice pictures. We get a look at all the minis that are going to be in this game, the map. There's going to be a lot of stuff inside of this. Don't need to focus too much on this. So 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, 2 hours. That may or may not be accurate, I'm sure, but a lot of different things. And I can already tell you that the colors of the minis should be a lot easier on the eyes than the base game of War of the Ring. This is like a softer green and a softer red. We'll see what the minis actually look like when we get there. That's kind of what keeps me thinking about painting my War of the Ring game, painting the minis, because of just how stark the colors are. I don't like them, but that's again my deal. So I'm working to get the lid off. Oh, there we go. All right, so we're gonna step through this diligently here. There's a flyer, free Simon, come on, I don't know how that's pronounced, content. They make a lot of other games, big, plastic heavy games. And then we have the rule book here. Now, this is going to be glossy paper and generally be in a 2-column format. Lots of pictures along the way. You'll notice that there are some rules here. These are the Kickstarter bonuses stuff. So there's like possible futures where you can change up what leaders are available. Here rule. I don't think these are bonus things, but like 3 to 4 player mode, the Mahdi solo mode, which is kind of interesting. I definitely want to look at this. I do have friends who are going to want to play this with me, but the solo mode certainly interesting to see and understand how that operates. And it's not a huge number of pages, right? It's like 5 pages of the rules, but you can see the rest of this. So adjudicating, movement, combat, prescience, and the track. So I believe that's somewhat analogous to the Fellowship track. Family atomics, worm sign and sandworms, ecological testing stations, named leaders, harvesters, Bene Gesserit, old man of the desert. All very flavorful things in how the game can be put together. And you can see now we're kind of getting a good description of the different. There's actually 3 different or multiple sandworm minis, which is really interesting. Be fun to paint, maybe. So we're going to have lots of tokens and markers, player charts, dashboards, 125 cards, additional components for the possible futures, which is interesting. A checkout of the game board, and then we start getting into the actual rules conveyance, and this all looks pretty standard for like the type of game that it is. I am unclear how good the rules really are in that conveyance, but we'll certainly find out along the way. Sand riding, Atreides only, troop transport, Harkonnen only. So very, very clearly geared towards, I would think, after the betrayal in Arrakis, if you're familiar with the story there. So lots of interesting stuff to look at. We're not going to be able to go super deep into the rules here, but just getting a good look. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of examples showing how things work in here. And again, this being the Kickstarter version, there is extra stuff in here. I do believe the PDF of this particular rulebook is available around. You just have to find it. If I can find the link, I'll try to put it in the description. If I can't find it, I believe it's out there. So there you go. There's the rule book. And we see there's a plastic encased set of the other components. So let's see if I can break the plastic on this without getting anything damaged, because I don't have my scissors handy. Obviously, this comes at a good time with the movie release. Part 2 coming very shortly. Okay, I did have to run and grab my scissors. I just couldn't get purchase on breaking the plastic here, so did that, and we continue on. I can definitely tell that the tokens are going to be really easy to punch out, so we're going to have to be real careful. Not quite ready to start punching and organizing yet everything in the game. So we have Spice Must Flow track. This looks like it is oriented for the Harkonnen player. And then we have the dashboard, the player dashboard, the command center of your components here. So represented by Gedi Prime, the home planet of the Harkonnens, and various things for deployment, Mentat, house, regeneration tanks. So ability to maybe regrow leaders is what that is used for. Got to watch the thematic bits of the regeneration tank, if that's meant to be for Golas, because, well, there's a whole lore thing I won't get into. Siege to Beer. This is the Atreides player command center here with the Atreides iconography here. So what I like is this is lore accurate. Their colors being black and green, and the hawk is all accurate. So I like seeing that kind of thing. I'm trying to look at, yeah, Harkonnens being a griffin, I think is what it is. So that's all accurate. I like that. That's good. And then we have interesting, some additional boards that are seemingly for both. They're both for Harkonnen. So there's a House Harkonnen board here. Maybe this is for the 2-player, and then Carino Ally. That's what this is probably for when you're doing it 2 players there. And then likewise, I bet this is what, House Trades and Fremen, do you think? Yeah. So when you're playing 4-player, you have a separation here. It looks like each player gets their own little micro board. So that's cool. Here we have the markers that we would punch out. I'm about to have some of this stuff just pop right out. So it's going to be very easy. Various control markers and administrative counters, and then there are overlays for the map. Hole in the rock, rim wall west. So this is if you blow the shield wall with the tonics. Spoilers. So don't need to do much with that. I think I can just set this aside. And then it looks like, okay, so basically everything else in this box appears to be in a sub box in here. So I'm not sure how we're going to get this out. Let's see, look at the bottom of the box for the tray guide. Oh goodness. Okay. Am I going to have to lift this thing out of here? Yes. Okay. We're going to open this box up in a second. Underneath is the map, which is mounted and encased in some plastic. So let me try to get a little more organized with this because there's so much to kind of unravel here. So I'm going to take the plastic off the map, and let's set out the map for a second before we go opening up more boxes and just appreciate the map. Okay, here we have the map out, and it is a fairly big map. It's actually wider than my table I'm using to do the unboxing on here altogether. So I think if we, well, we're just going to have to kind of set this down, and I'll rotate the camera here as I can. So there are some tracks here for counting victory points. The map is actually pretty sparse, all things considered. Like on the outskirts, but there are some symbols here. I think that's for sieges. There are some landmarks. Like here, that's rock. Let's say outcroppings. And then you have, more of the sort of, what is mostly featured in the books or in the map of the books, where have it upside down from a, I guess, from a, you want this in the north, or I guess, gosh, it's not north, is it? Because that's the North Pole. That's the North Pole. There's Arakeen here. Carthag is here, and then you have these other areas, and then the protection of the shield wall here, the mountainous region that blocks the worst of the sandstorm. So I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of mechanics related to that here, and everything that I'm seeing, it's all as lore accurate as one can be expecting here. So I like all that. I need it to be lore accurate. That's really important. So it looks good, and then I can see hole in the rock where the atomics go off, where you break the shield wall basically, and things can get crazy with that. So don't want to spend too much time on the map. It is nice. What I will say is there's a little bit of pooching with the maps just being unfolded for the first time, but it's still, even right now, laying pretty darn flat, which is very nice. Like, I don't feel the need to put plexiglass over it. There is a light border around the edge of the table. You can just barely see. It's like, green and red right here. When that refocuses, you can see that. So I guess I'm standing from the Harkonnen player's perspective for playing the map. So yeah, looking good so far. Okay, and then we have the box that had come, basically was sitting on top of the map here. Now this is going to be the mini extravaganza. So I think this opens like this, and it looks like maybe I should just be sliding this stuff out. Okay. Goodness. All right, so yeah, this box, I would assume you may want to keep this box to keep everything in. I don't know. I'll hold on to mine for the time being until we get used to things. This is very nice. And here we see there's a pouch. I suspect we draw from. It's actually very nice. So that's cool. There's a nice little tuck spot for it. I don't know if there's something that's supposed to be right here and here. I suppose not. But we do have cards, so I suspect you may be able to separate the cards. What I suspect is going to be the case here is like everything's going to be able to fit back into the box and nice and clean via these plastic storage shelves. So if we break open the cards, and I may do that here, we should be able to sit them inside the card holders, and that be their home. So you don't necessarily need to be worried about broken token type of inserts here. So we just opened this up. This is a variety of cards, just to get a quick look at them. Like, oh gosh. Breeding program. Take one Bene Gesserit token from the reserve, then play a planning card. A variety of different cards. Hope Cloud's observation. So these are all like the Carino cards. Carino ally, House Carino, the Emperor. And there's, here's some more Harkonnen cards. Hawat scheming. Twofer, no. Removed Twofer Hawat from the game. That's a bummer. Evidence of Rebellion. So a lot of these more, you play event cards, I guess you might look at them, and then here are, similar ones for Fremen and Atreides. What's interesting there, I think, is just the separation of um, the factions having distinct card sets. I'm going to separate them like that and see how that goes. And then the other piece of it, well, I might have to move these around with these other cards. The other side of it being, what about, it's a shame there's not a whole lot of more extra art there, but I suspect some of these other cards will have plenty of art on them. I guess, War of the Rings not particularly artful on the cards. There's occasionally, there's art on like the characters. So I guess I'm not, this isn't anything below what we've seen elsewhere. So here are, let's see, there's a variety of cards here. So we're gonna kind of sift through them very quickly here. So these are leader cards. So there's Paul. I assume he becomes Paul Muad'Dib at some point. Enter play when prescient equals 3, I bet is what that is. Lady Jessica, Reverend Mother Jessica, Stilgar, Johnny, Gurney Halleck. Does seem to be using the newer movie as a reference point. Naive Leaders, Wild Maker, Saint Alia of the Knife, and we start getting into several of these other guys. Harkonnen, Fade Rotha. It's kind of a funny looking illustration for Fade, but we'll take it. And okay, so here are cards with some nice artwork. Really cool. I'm gonna have to like sit through and peruse these because I really quite like the art. It looks very well done. Thematic. So okay, so there's a lot of these different ones. Not having played the game yet, I can't be entirely sure. Chom, Space and Guild, the Lansrad. Oh, this is cool. I'm just digging all this stuff. Cool. Well, that's awesome. I like all of that. Maybe I'll set these cards in here for now. And then we have finally, I think these are the expansion Kickstarter only cards. So the, one of the alternate futures, you can have Duke Leto at the start of the game. Spoilers, that would be different than the way the narrative goes. So a little bit of, alt timeline activities you can enjoy through the power of precedence. Trying to get the plastic off of this. It's giving me a little bit of trouble. Here we go. Don't think there's going to be too much in here that's going to be like crazy off the wall stuff, but we can look at this. So we have Duke Leto, we have Piter, some more cards. Okay, Good Guy Twofer. Get Kynes, Jameis, Count Fenring. That's kind of interesting to see. Lady Fenring. Duncan, Idaho. That's great. Dr. Yue. Cool. I like that. We'll keep that set separate, I guess. And then just getting back to the rest of the stuff here, we have minis even for buildings here. So I think these are Sieches. I want to say they're Sieches. I could be wrong about that. And the models are actually really like fairly detailed looking, which is really cool. And the colors don't hurt my eyes like War of the Ring does. So that's cool. And then we have a number of the leader minis. This might be hard to get into focus, but they're very quite nice as well. So I like that. And they all look good too. Like there's none that are like, oh, that looks malformed. They all look really good. They look spot on the way they're supposed to be. There's a bag of dice. I'm not going to worry too much about that, but this game has its own set of dice. And then I think I can just pull this off. And this has its own lid, which we will take off gently. And now we start getting into more of the Harkonnen stuff. So let me get this to focus. There's obviously a gigantic sandworm, gigantic sandworm mini here waiting in the wings. But we see there's just a lot of the individual soldiers, and they all, again, look really nice. Like the actual mini quality is quite good. They're rock solid. I don't see any that look like obviously malformed or funny looking like sometimes you can get in these sorts of games. So I'm not going to look super closely at all of them, but they are all pretty nice leaders and soldiers. I'm going to stick the lid on and kind of set this aside for the moment. We have then more Atreides units, same thing, looking really good for quality. There's a distinction. There's like a lighter and a darker shade of green here that may signify something important there. There are more buildings. Maybe these are the sieges, and what I was grabbing before was something else. Could be. So some sandworm minis, which look really good. They look really good. And then the gargantuan. Oh, it's tied down, so I'm gonna have to. I'll break him out here in a second. But that's pretty entertaining. Oh, and it looks like. Oh, okay, so I can pick this up, and then finally we have the minis for the airships that pick up the spice collectors. We have, I think these are the spice collectors themselves. The trawlers, very cool. And some other buildings. And man, everything just looks really nice. The ornithopters look very nice. I don't feel the desire to even need to paint any of these. I mean, they're nice enough that it all looks really good. So that's a plus. I like that a lot. Let me see if I can get this gigantic sandworm out of here. All right, here we go. This is a gigantic mini. Utterly fantastic, by the way. This is just great. It's funny. This would be a good mini to paint actually, because it's so big. You could do a good job of trying to paint the whole thing over here, and make it look cool. I don't know that I have the wherewithal to worry about that, but I definitely like the presence of that there. So that's goodness, and I'll just start putting this back together. It does seem like it comes together pretty well. Everything can kind of stack on top of each other. I really do not feel the need to like try to come up with some other storage solution. Now the expansions might modify that, but being expansions, you can probably get away with keeping them in their own box, separate. I'm sure someone will figure out some efficient way of having everything together, but this looks like I can just fit it all back in without too much pain and suffering, which is really good. Now, worrying about sticking every single regular like infantry unit or whatever in the plastic tray, that could maybe become a bit labor intensive, but I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and keep all this in this, and I'm going to let this guy sit down in there, and everything else should fit back in pretty good. Now when we start punching the counters, we are going to have to find a place for some of these counters, and I'm not sure exactly what the strategy for that will end up being, what's going to make the most sense, but not overly worried about it for the moment. So just looking to get the rest of this stuff back in here. Shouldn't be, not expecting any major issues with it. looks like. I will have a little bit, won't be completely flat, but good enough for the time being until I can punch those counters and get them organized. So I will have to look. I think there's a couple of empty bays in that plastic tray to put those things. So that shouldn't be a big issue. So that's the main game. If you looked at all that, that's just the main game. So plenty of cool stuff in there. Gigantic minis, all neatly arranged and organized and trade for us. Whole sets of cards, and then that sheet of counters, a rule book, all those player displays. That's the whole main game by itself, which my understanding is it would play just fine without the expansion. So if you're worried about the expansion, they're just fine. There is a line of thought that I've seen that says, oh no, you really want both the expansions in. It's designed to be played with both expansions. And they're wholly separate things that are all coming out at the same time. So I don't know, you can kind of, the logistics and the economics of board game Kickstarters and expansions, I don't know, is what it is. There you go. So let me start switching over to the Smugglers expansion, and we'll open that guy up too. Okay, so the Smugglers expansion is coming in a much smaller box. And as you can see, we can expect to get some more minis, beautiful, beautiful minis, and various things. So what do we get? 15 miniatures, 4 plastic stands, 1 die, a board, 4 cards, and a rule book. You need the base game to play. And yeah, this is representing or adding in mechanics around the smugglers that operated within the story, and there's a whole little narrative aspect of that. That is ostensibly a neutral faction, but you can use them to do stuff, basically. Yeah. So let's see what we get. I do, the picture is pretty neat on the front cover, pretty cool looking. So let's get this guy open too. Now, in the story of the novel, let's say more spoilers for people, but gosh, if you're watching this video and you've made it this far, you've already read the Dune novel, haven't you? Gurney Halleck found himself operating or working with some smugglers, if I remember correctly, and so I don't know how that'll interact with his character, if at all. So we get in here, there is a nice little booklet, components, and then the mechanics of what changes in the game. Smugglers are neutral, smugglers ally with the Atreides. It does look like, okay, so it plays into the prescience track, so once you get so further along, they will join up. I guess the prescience track may be tracking Paul's development, and as he becomes a bigger leader, stronger leader, and gains access to more of his prescience, that opens up more of these actions. So it doesn't look like, it's not many pages, so in terms of like, oh, I got to read an extra set of rules, it's only a handful of pages, so it's not like there's a lot of weight that you have to worry about here. Now, what comes in, very nice, oh, thank goodness, little plastic envelope are the cards, and here we have Staban Tuek. We have some other cards that govern ornithopters, drone ornithopters. Not too much craziness there, as I will seek to put these back in the plastic sleeve they came in, just to keep them nice. They fit right in there with or without the sleeve. And then we have the board for smuggler camps. You would set this somewhere on the map. Nice cardboard, durable, good shape. And as we get to, so I can take this whole tray out of the box, but I don't necessarily have to. I just have to take the lid off, which is proving now to be a bit difficult. So we'll just take it out of the box and get a closer look at this. So this is giving me some grief opening. Well, this is certainly secure. I wonder if there's tape I'm missing somewhere that's making this harder to get off than I think it should. All right. Okay, it does turn out there was tape keeping this from coming off. Took care of the tape. Just making a mess. All right. So here we have standees, which I'm gonna have to look to see if there were actually standees for some of the other things. But we have, you know, a very robust looking sandcrawler transport and some more crawlers, different sort. I really like the miniature quality. I mean, they really went hard at making these very nice. And the one die, so nothing too crazy. They're nice, you know, compact expansion. You know, it's not huge, but what you're really getting in terms of space from the box is just the tray for the minis. The minis fit in there quite nice. Not sure I would want to try to fit this in the big box. I don't think there's room, certainly, so I think you do got to keep this stored separately, but overall that's a nice little package. And we're going to move on to the Spacing Guild. So likewise, absolutely great artwork of a Spacing Guild navigator in a tank directing the Highliner. And on the back here we get, okay, so there's going to be new units for both sides, potentially 21 miniatures, 8 plastic stands, 16 color bases, 3 boards, 16 cards, 1 rule book. So it seems like maybe this one's a little bit bigger in it. Hire a guild Highliner, fill it with space frigates provided by Chom, and houses major troops supplied by the Lansrad. Oh boy, all kinds of stuff. So I guess it's really more than the Spacing Guild, right? It incorporates stuff from Chom and the Lansrad even. So it's more robust. I guess you can't call it Spacing Guild, Lansrad, Chom, like all these tertiary factions expansion. You got to call it the Spacing Guild, because folks are going to recognize, or at least have some way to understand what that means. And what's interesting here is that this was a slit on the back, which I wonder if is there any difference? Did they correct something? I guess there's a lot more. Yeah, okay, well that's nice. So we'll progress from here, and we have similarly a rulebook. So we have the Highliners, space frigates. We have colored bases to denote which side the house major troops have joined. That we're adding a guild navigator as a Harkonnen leader, which is interesting. And we're going to get a variety of cards, planning cards, reference cards, and then the additional boards. Looks like this is definitely, you know, space boards, space forces. So much more involved there. Looks like there's a whole landing procedure to land additional troops. Yeah, but still not a huge amount of extra rules. I mean, you figure a lot of the page counts actually picture too. There's not that much more stuff that you need to incorporate into the game. We see the not sure if either side, if there's a difference between the two, but the space board, the Highliner for the Atreides, Highliner for the Harkonnen. I think this is supposed to show like who's on a ship, I think. Here are the colored bases. Interesting that there's like this nice little spot for counters. I'm not sure what we would put in there. And then we have our cards now. Unfortunately, this was not in a nice plastic sleeve. This is plastic wrapped, so it's going to take me a second to deal with that. But I do want to. Are we dealing? All right. Let me break a couple of these things open off camera. Okay. So we got through that. So for the cards, Guild Navigator, um, Troop Carriers, Sword Masters, all these good bits. Chome Bribes, Lansrod Bribes, and you see here. I have to look into how these things operate because you are functionally now feeding in these extra factions, but you're still not getting that they are being added in a thematic way, not necessarily the way that we see in the old the old Dune board game where the Spacing Guild is deploying its own troops to do things like that's not really what they did. So we have these frigates, which again, these are pretty nice little models here. You could certainly do some paintwork on them, but they look great just by themselves, really. So very nice. I'll say it again. I'll keep saying it. Here's your guild navigator leader. Whole gigantic counter or mini for him. These are these Trades frigates. Kind of nondescript sci-fi ships, but that's okay. And then I'm only going to get one highliner out because they're basically pretty similar. Your big highliner that moves all the big ships and then does the folding of space to go to another planet. You also have the little individual house troops. I mean, these are just really good minis. I'm so glad. Like these could be much worse style of mini ultimately, and they're really not. They're all really quite nice, and they all look really good. So I'm gonna get this on. I do wonder. I'm like, okay, what can I use this bay for, other than just having all these rings sit down in it. If we ran out of space, somewhere else, what could we do with it? Who knows? And then everything fits neatly back together. Well, that's it, guys. I mean, we have now unboxed both expansions, the main game. There's a lot to enjoy here. I will say that. I think that's going to go without much more need to explain of this just gigantic package of Dune goodness. If you like me, I really like Dune. This is an awesome thing to get to play with. More than I think I'm probably going to end up enjoying this more than the original Dune board game, just because of how much more thematic to the narrative it is. I'm really excited to get this to the table. I've got a friend who's itching for their copy. I think he and I are going to try to arrange to play this at a point in the very near future. We'll find some way to represent that on the channel in time to come. But yeah, so there you go, guys. The Dune War for Arrakis Kickstarter pledge unboxing. Just it's such an awesome package to be looking at here. Hope to show more of this in time. A little bit different from the normal war game stuff, but still in line, along with War of the Ring and many other great thematic games like Star Wars Rebellion. We're living in a good time. The games like this can be made, produced, and can reach the audience that will really enjoy them. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope this was useful for you, and we'll see you later. Take care. Keep gaming.